AAT Birds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need.
Quick, he's gonna go. What a give it to Smith, and they stop him again. So back. He looks, fires for the end zone, intercepted, the 20, the 10, the 5, touchdown, Matt Ware, midfield, he's gonna go, Deshaun Jackson, he steps up, he's hit, and falls forward, and he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it, it's gone, and the Eagles win.
It's all birds, all the time.
And welcome to another edition of the AT Birds Weekly Report and Opposition Outlook. We're looking into the Green Bay Packers, joined by Kendall, and we have a special guest here, Andy Herman, from the Pack a Day podcast and writer-editor for the Packer Report. I did not see, one thing I thought about while the intro was playing was I didn't have a 4th and 26, in there with Merrill's call. But I will be posting that. We will be posting that later this week. So, but again, Annie, thank you for joining us to kind of break down this Sunday night matchup. Eagles 9-1, and the Packers, unfortunately, 4-7. So, I definitely want to get your input on this matchup. But again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Freddie Mitchell, 4th and 26. Everyone always gives Rodgers the discount double check and doing the belt. If memory serves, Freddie Mitchell did the championship belt, when he made a big play. I know Freddie Mitchell didn't exactly always live up to expectations, but one of the bigger plays in unfortunate Packers history, and one of those just excruciating ways that the Packers have always found a way to lose playoff games. So, yeah, very, very well aware of the 4th and 26 play.
Yeah, Freddie Mitchell is a friend of the show, so definitely he likes anytime I send him some videos and some different cut-ups of him during his time in the NFL. But yeah, it was awesome. Hell of a play there. But I want to start off here, of course, talking about this matchup. We know the Packers aren't the team that everyone expected them to be when the season started, but the struggles that Green Bay, has had. It seems like there's like many layers to the kind of struggles that they're having with the eye-opening issues of the receiving core, and Aaron Rodgers not really looking like himself. What can you kind of if you can kind of put your finger on what's kind of going on in Green Bay?
How long do you guys have? Is this like a 4-hour podcast, a 5-hour podcast? Because this is going to take a hot second. The crazy thing is it's everything. It is literally everything. There is few things that have gone right at 1265 Lombardi Avenue through the entirety of this season. I joked this week, I think the Packers digital writer, Wes Hodkiewicz, is the only one that is without blame at the entirety of 1265 this year. Brian Gutekunst certainly has a level of blame for what has gone on. Not being able to find a actual returner, a kick returner, punt returner. Amari Rodgers had to be released, 3rd round pick just a season ago because of his failures as a returner and couldn't do anything at wide receiver. This is clearly a team that we're starting to see some of the playmaking. Romeo Doubs was showing it, 4th round pick this season prior to injury. Christian Watts in the last 2 weeks, 5 touchdown receptions in the last 2 weeks, is now 6 touchdowns on the season. He's really starting to break out. So we're starting to see some playmaking, from some of these younger players, but going into the season, didn't really have enough playmaking. Some of the issues along the offensive line going into the year with David Bakhtiari coming off the long injury layoff, with Elton Jenkins coming off a torn ACL, probably needed a little bit more veteran depth there. It wasn't there at the beginning of the season. The offensive line struggled tremendously. So there are, and I could go on, but there are some other issues that have really reared its ugly head from a, kind of a general manager standpoint, head coaching standpoint. The Joe Barry hire of defensive coordinator has been an unmitigated disaster. He had awful stints as a defensive coordinator at 2 spots prior to coming to Green Bay. Spoiler alert, it hasn't gotten better since coming to Green Bay. And he's had issues finding coordinators. He's now on his third special teams coordinator. He just got here in 2019. He's on his third special teams coordinator. He's now on his second defensive coordinator, probably going to be on his third defensive coordinator next season. There have been multiple games where it's been very clear and obvious that Aaron Jones is the key to this offense, the player that needs to get the ball. And he's, ends the day with under 10 touches on any given game. That's happened on numerous occasions. This offense has clearly not been what Matt LaFleur has envisioned an offense to be. It is clearly gone over to Aaron Rodgers and what Aaron Rodgers wants to run, which has been a major issue. I could go on and on about that. Aaron Rodgers has not been the same quarterback. Just about every single player on this team to a T has either not lived up to expectations or has played well below expectations, including some second-year players who they were expecting to get a jump from, which has not happened from almost the entirety of their 2021 draft class. Special teams, Rich Bisaccia gets brought in, made the highest paid special teams coordinator in football, gets to bring in his 2 assistants, gets to bring over Dallin Levitt, Keyshawn Nixon, Jonathan Abram, gets Rudy Ford, like special teams specialists, and the special teams is still abysmal. We could go on and on, but you add on to that what's actually been a fairly difficult schedule, a really tough road stretch where they were at 5 different stadiums in 5 weeks. And you get the makings of a really, really poor and disappointing season. And that's where Green Bay's at right now. And that's the Cliff Notes version. That's just like the overhanging, like easy stuff. We could get a lot deeper too.
So I want to bring up, this is kind of, this is the obvious one, but the loss of Davante Adams has been real. Trying to replace him has been difficult. I can tell in the beginning of this season, they were trying to, get Dobbs involved and get Watson involved early. Sort of like you said in the beginning, it's been a mixture of Aaron playing bad, and Dobbs also had his struggles with drops and whatnot, and Watson also had his struggles. What's been going on with the offense? Do you think it's there's more specific Aaron Rodgers struggling? Because I know he hasn't been his same self, but is it more of Aaron? Is it more of LaFleur? Is it more of the receivers? What do you think about that exactly?
Yeah, this is another one where it's a little bit of all of the above, but let's start with Aaron. So one of the things is Aaron's got a thumb injury. There's been whispers and rumors as of late that it is a broken thumb. He has made mention that it is not an excuse. And oddly enough, 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys, he played his best game of the season, threw the ball all over the field with incredible accuracy. And against the Titans 4 days later, struggled with accuracy, missed multiple receivers on different occasions throughout the course of that game. So to kind of back up a little bit, Davante's gone. You're bringing back a Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard, and then you're bringing in 3 rookie receivers, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Samori Toure. You go get a Sammy Watkins who has not done anything for them. You have Amari Rodgers coming in, to his second season. The hope was a couple of these guys would step up. Brian Gutekunst has actually had a pretty good track record of bringing in some of these low-price veterans and getting really good ROI on it. Sammy Watkins has not been that whatsoever. And I think actually you can make a strong argument that Dobbs, Watson, and Toure 7th-round pick, Dobbs a 4th, Watson a 2nd, are all showing signs that they can actually well outperform their draft position based on some of the flashes that we've seen from all of them. But these are rookie receivers. They take time to develop unless you get a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, who I know have just shattered expectations of what a rookie wide receivers, can look like. Unless you get one of those guys, these guys take time to develop. And I think, again, they're overshooting their expectation in the season, but it still wasn't enough early in the season. Add in some, injury issues to Lazard, Cobb, Watson, Dobbs throughout the course of the season. And it starts bringing the talent level down and really certainly not having a player capable of Davante Adams and also Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who they lost from a season ago. So you start the season, you don't have the full complement of weapons that he's used to. You also have David Bakhtiari, who wasn't quite ready to come back from injury yet. Elton Jenkins, who wasn't quite ready to come back from injury yet. And you had this makeshift offensive line with not the weapons that he's used to. Robert Tonyan coming back off of a torn ACL at tight end. And really the only thing that you kind of had was Aaron Jones as your constant, right? So to start the season, they get, beat up by Minnesota in week 1. And early in the season, even once Bakhtiari and Jenkins get come back as they sort of work their rust off, this offensive line was not up to par. It wasn't very good, but neither in the run game nor in the passing game. The receivers were incredibly inconsistent. And Rodgers was having to lower his eyes to watch what was happening at the line of scrimmage, which if you remember back to 2017 and 2018, when he was showing signs of being human, there was something similar. The offensive line was breaking down. Some of the seasons where Jordy had his torn ACL, like some of those sort of seasons, can happen where Rodgers starts bringing his eyes down and he becomes a lot less effective. Early in his career, he had the legs and the agility to move outside of the pocket, to run when he needed to, and to make all of these phenomenal things happen. He doesn't have that anymore. So his eyes start coming down because he doesn't trust the offensive line. And then when he gets his eyes back up, he's got a lot of receivers who he doesn't have a comfort level with to know exactly where they're going to be and to know how, kind of how to get back to the football and kind of make some of those off script plays. So you've got Rodgers trying to be Superman, but he doesn't have the same superpowers that he used to have. You have an offensive line that's breaking down, forcing Aaron to bring his eyes down. And you've got receivers that aren't necessarily the playmakers that he's used to and aren't exactly in the places and the spots that he's expecting them to be. So you end up with this sort of mess of an offense. And little by little, we've started to see as Bakhtiari gets healthy and Jenkins gets healthy, that this offensive line is protecting better. You're starting to see signs from Dobbs before he got hurt and Watson and some of these receivers that they're starting to get open more. But it was almost like those first, 6 games of the season kind of broke Aaron and got him completely out of his rhythm, where he hasn't quite got back to the fact of, hey, I'm going to run this offense. I'm going to sit in the pocket. I'm going to trust my O-line and I'm going to, have my receivers where I expect them to be. So even as guys have kind of gotten better, he hasn't developed that trust back with the team yet. Add in the fact that he's got this thumb injury, and you've also had, again, Dobbs go out with an injury and some other issues as well. And you just have this sort of perfect storm of crap that has happened to this Packers offense. And the result has been very abysmal offense this season.
So you talked about some injuries on the offensive side of the ball. And I want to kind of shift it to the defense because the defense have had some injuries the last couple of weeks. Eric Stokes is put on IR, Rashawn Gary on IR, Devondre Campbell's been injured. What is the kind of outlook when you're looking, and you kind of tie it to this game, looking at an Eagles offense? Yeah, they lost Dallas Goedert, but they still have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Miles Sanders, and this offensive line. What is the outlook going against this Eagles offense for the Packers defense?
Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. So you look at this, the Titans game that they're coming off of, right? They stack the box to stop Derrick Henry, and they do a pretty good job of it. They, he was right around 3 yards per carry, he held him under 100 yards, no explosive runs. He did have a nice play in a screen pass, which probably should have got called back due to penalty, neither here nor there. Overall, they held him pretty well. But they committed so many bodies to the box and played a lot of off zone coverage that against the Titans 31st ranked passing attack, they weren't able to do anything. Or like Tannehill threw the ball all around the field, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry threw a touchdown. Like it was just getting to the point of ridiculousness. And they did not hold up in the passing game at all in any capacity. Now you face an Eagles team who, despite not having a Derrick Henry, and I know I'm preaching to you guys here who already know all this, but despite not having Derrick Henry, average more yards per rush. It's like by 0.1, but more yards per rush than the Titans do. They have, I think, a more complete rushing attack. Obviously, Jalen Hurts being a part of that as well when need be. You have a more mobile quarterback. You have a better quarterback. You have an A.J. Brown. You have a Devontae Smith. And the Titans didn't have any of that. Like the only thing that I could actually, and you have a way, way, way better offensive line than the Titans did, even though I think they're punching above their weight or their talent level in Tennessee and playing a good brand of football. Lane Johnson, Kelsey, Mailata, those guys would immediately be the 3 best offensive linemen on the Titans right now. So you are a souped up version of the Tennessee Titans team that just went into Lambeau Field and, had no issues going up and down the field on the Packers. I'm already trying to erase the game from my memory, but they at least had 28 points. I can't even remember what the final score was because I tried to nuke it from, like I said, from my memory, but they had no issues scoring in Lambeau Field when, by the way, the Packers needed this game to save their season. And now that was like the dagger, right? Like, yes, they could probably win 6 in a row and maybe get back in this thing. That's not happening. The team knows that. And so you've got a defeated team that is coming off their 6th loss in 7 weeks, a completely deflating loss to the Titans. And now you face a souped up version of the team that you just faced. Yeah, the outlook's not great.
So my favorite thing from the Packers within the past couple of years is that I've noticed that they have picked up players in the Eagles secondary who are either were waived or cut and have made them into productive starters, like Russell Douglas, Shannon Sullivan, or recently Rudy Ford. How do you feel about them going against what I know Sullivan's now in Minnesota, but how do you feel about Rudy or Russell or Jair? Do you think Jair is going to follow AJ Brown? How do you like them going against Devontae and Quez and Brown on Sunday night?
Yeah, so one of the more frustrating things with the Packers this season is they have, especially going into the season with Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, they have cover corners. They have man cover corners is what they have. Jair wants to play man. Rasul wants to play man press on the outside. Stokes wants to play man. They are bad zone corners more often than not because they're outside of Rasul, Stokes, Jair, Darnell Savage at safety, and now he's playing a little bit in the slot as well. Those aren't like C-ball hit the ball carrier guys. Like they're not aggressive tacklers. So those guys are made for man coverage. Yeah, this is a team that's played a ton of zone off coverage throughout the course of the season, just not playing to their strengths. Week 1 against Minnesota, Justin Jefferson, listen, going into the offseason, right? Justin Jefferson's going to be a problem for like a decade. Like he's not going anywhere. Right. And that he's like the guy that you're going to have to stop within this division. You're not afraid of the Bears. You're not afraid of the Lions. You're afraid of the Vikings a little bit. And the number one guy you have to stop is Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, week 1, they have no plan for it. An awful plan. They had no plan B, plan C. Jefferson goes absolutely off. Then the big question is, why wasn't Jair Alexander covering Justin Jefferson in that game? As the season goes along, they get to playing more man. They play a little bit more press. They let these guys do what they want to do. Had some success against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys put some points up, but they played a much better brand of football in that game, won the game, come back against the Titans and play a bunch of off zone coverage again. So like trying to figure out what this is going to do, even when it seems fairly obvious of like, hey, they've got a Justin Jefferson. Jair Alexander's probably a pretty good idea to use on that player. Nope. And even when they've had success in man coverage, Titans come to town and nope, we're going to play off, zone off coverage. So your guess is as good as mine at this point, but this has been a secondary. The first thing I would tell you guys, this defense cannot communicate to save their lives at the moment. There are multiple big plays for the Titans where guys are just running free down the field and Packers players are pointing at each other and throwing their hands in the air, wondering who is supposed to cover them. That's been happening since week 1 against the Vikings. It happened more than ever this past week against the Titans. Stack guys, make the Packers communicate, and they have not shown the propensity to be able to do that all season long. And if I were the Eagles and they're a very smart, well-run team, I would be making sure that Green Bay's having to switch and communicate on almost every passing play because Green Bay hasn't shown the ability to do that.
So, looking at the Eagles offense and what they do, we talked about the Packers offense. Now, if we look at the Eagles defense to the Packers offense, now the Eagles added 2 interior defensive linemen, Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, who paid dividends against Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts. Green Bay running the ball, that's their forte, right? Looking at what they can do offensively, that's their bread and butter. How do you think they match up there with the Eagles, adding those 2 pieces and what they already have on the defensive side of the ball when it looks like running the ball against the Eagles?
Yeah, so that's their bread and butter when they're going well, when they decide that they actually want to run the football and let the offense run through Aaron Jones. And again, we saw that against the Cowboys. It worked very well, didn't work very well against the Titans. And in so many other games, they just sort of abandoned the run out of nowhere. But as you guys know, there were a couple of cracks, shown against the Commanders. The Colts almost pick up a win. And obviously, running the football, especially with the Commanders, a huge part of that. And the Eagles very wisely go out and they sign Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh and they get reinforcements, right? So I think Green Bay is going to look at it and say, yeah, we've seen a little bit of the vulnerability. We want to be able to run the football. We want to get Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon going. And I think if they can do that early in the game, and make this a game where the Eagles have to defend the run over and over, and hopefully they can get some play action shots down the field. That gives Green Bay a puncher's chance in that situation. I mean, the biggest thing I can tell you guys is if you make Green Bay one-dimensional, if you make them spread out 3 wide, throwing the ball 80% of the time, the game is yours. Green Bay can't win that way. They went against Detroit, the worst pass defense in football. They just fired their defensive backs coach in Aubrey Pleasant, who the Packers went and signed as an offensive consultant immediately after that. They fire Aubrey Pleasant, and they had the worst secondary in football, maybe one of the worst secondaries we've seen in a long time. And Green Bay spreads the ball out, goes 3 wide, static, no motion, no anything. And they couldn't beat that Lions secondary. Lions secondary locked them up, press man, threw the receivers to the ground legally. Green Bay couldn't get off of it, and the Lions beat the Packers in the game the Packers had to have. If you can make the Packers one-dimensional, if you can take away Aaron Jones and the running game, it's over, because Green Bay can't win that way right now.
So now what I want to do here is I want to ask you 2 things. Going to get your lock of the week, and then going to get your prediction. I'll start with the lock. What do you feel is going to happen this weekend? You're stone cold. You're what we call it, Ulecka Lock of the week.
Am I allowed to pick the Eagles as my lock of the week? Because
You
I
can
think
pick whatever you'd like.
I'm gonna go with the Eagles as my lock of the week, and I'll combine it right away. Yeah, right. You say you do want to hear that or don't want to hear that?
I don't want to hear that. That's just bad energy for us.
It's so funny story. I was doing a live show with the Lions, a couple guys who write for the Lions and cover the Lions and are big Lions fans right before the game. And they're coming on and they're saying, man, like the Lions are bad. They just fired their defensive backs coach. We know how we know the story. Even when the Lions are good, the Packers come in and beat the Lions, and this Lions team isn't good, and so on and so forth. And me and my other hosts were like, you don't know this Packers team. This is not the Packers team that you are used to. And they were confident. They're like, no, guys, like, trust me, you're going to beat the Lions and you're going to get right back in things. And we're like, that sounds great. But like, I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. And, sure enough, Lions beat the Packers in Detroit. And like I said, that kind of felt like the final dagger at the time. These are 2 teams on 2 totally different wavelengths right now. And this has been a crazy NFL season, right? So like, just as soon as we think we figured something out, like it goes in the exact opposite direction. So that's why they play, of course, but this is an Eagles team that, go back to 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. Eagles came into Lambeau Field when the Packers were really at the height of their powers, like within the Matt LaFleur era, and the Eagles were not. And the Eagles walk into Lambeau and beat the Packers in Lambeau. This Eagles team right now, what's that?
2019, the tipped interception.
Yeah, 2019 it was. Okay, so technically 3 years ago. This Eagles team now is way better than that Eagles team was then. And this Packers team now is way worse than that Packers team was then. The styles make fights, right? The Packers, after they lost to the Jets earlier this year, Robert Saleh basically said, we knew, and I'm paraphrasing here, but like basically said, we keep leaning on the Packers. I mean, if we keep punching them in the face, they're eventually going to fold. This Packers team does not want to play a heavyweight fight. The Eagles are, like I said, they're a souped up version of this Tennessee Titans team who wants to have a heavyweight fight, and they punched the Packers in the mouth at Lambeau Field, and Green Bay wasn't able to punch back. And the Eagles are going to be able to do that exact same thing. They play they play football the right way right now. With the way that they're able to run the football, and they just added reinforcements on defense. Like, this is an Eagles team that's playing the brand of football that you need to win in 2022, and the Packers aren't. And there's a reason why the Eagles are 9-1 on top of the conference, and the Packers are probably a loss this week away to being all but all eliminated. So I like the Eagles a lot in this game. And I know, again, for some, maybe that might be like that's bad juju or whatever. This is not your old fashioned Packers team. And again, anytime you have Aaron Rodgers, you've got a puncher's chance, but this is not the same team we're used to.
So with that, of course, you pick the Eagles as your lock. So we have your prediction. Do you have a score prediction, kind of what you think is going to happen on Sunday night?
Yeah, I'm going to say 31-17 Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to be able to have a ball control offense. I think they're going to be able to march down the field. Rashawn Gary's injury has been huge for this defense. They just don't have a way to get any specific pressure, and they're forced to commit more bodies. They're going to have to, they're going to have to commit people to stop the run and probably keep an eye on Jalen Hurts as well. And that's just going to open things up downfield. And Devontae Smith, AJ Brown are going to get some explosives in this game. I think Eagles are going to be able to put up some points. I like 31. I think Green Bay has found a little bit of a formula to get some explosive plays finally going. Christian Watson's been a revelation these past couple weeks. I think the offense is finally, like, the offensive line has played better, that they've, now that they've moved a couple guys around. I think this is going to be a team that, I'm not saying that they're world beaters finally, putting up 17 points, but that feels like heavy lifting right now for this team. So I think they're going to get a couple touchdowns. I think they probably hit a field goal. But I think Eagles, like I said, probably win this fairly easy. I'll say 31-17.
All right. I like that. No, don't get me wrong. But again, Andy, thank you for joining us tonight. Where can everyone find you? What are you doing? Just kind of plug yourself there.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the Packers podcast or the Pack-A-Day podcast at Pack-A-Day podcast. You can find my writing over on PackerReport.com as well. So appreciate you guys having me, and certainly best of luck this weekend.
Absolutely. We'll keep in touch. You take care.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
All right. So, that's good insight on the Packers-Eagles matchup. What I want to do before we get into, diving a little bit into that, I want to get your rundown. Eagles beat the Colts 17-16. Close game, nail biter. Eagles were down multiple scores, came back and won the game. Last time they did that, when they were down by 10 or more points in the fourth quarter and would wind up winning, was 2010, and it was the Deshaun Jackson punt return touchdown. Miracle at the Meadowlands too. So it was a long time there, but this game is just, for me, is seeing Jalen Hurts get that game-winning drive, take the team on his back, go down there, had the touchdown to Quez. Then, of course, A.J. Brown has the fumble after they get the fumble from Jonathan Taylor, and then he was able to get them right down the field. The sea opened up right in there, and then the defense held. But it was a tough game. The Colts are a tough team. They're a good team. They're not – I know what the record shows, but again, when you have to start Sam Ehlinger for a couple games, your record's going to be a little bit
Definitely
narrowed there. But what was your take on the game on Sunday?
So I got different things. Personally, myself, I actually do think Matt Ryan is, everyone thinks he's this, washed up guy. Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan. He has always put up great numbers passing. He was not amazing against us, but the offense was stale. Steichen's play calling was very confusing. There was no creativity as there was, previous weeks. There was the questionable play calling towards the end. And then the defense came out with a rough start. Colts went run, play action pass, boom, Pittman over the middle. And then Taylor punches it in. Then when you see that, you're like, oh, it's going to be one of those days. And luckily, defense was able to regroup, and they played lockdown ever since that first drive. And, as hard as we've been on Gannon the past couple of weeks, I mean, he's really the reason why the Eagles won that game on Sunday, because the offense was not clicking. Steichen and Sirianni seemed to have no legit kind of plan as to what they wanted to do. But the biggest credit has to go to Hurts on that last drive, because the difference, I don't mean to bring up Wentz, but the difference between Hurts and him is that Hurts in the biggest moments always sees to rise. And I always felt like when Wentz, in the biggest games, he'd always just kind of like, fall back, and like he wouldn't be as poised, and he would scramble and he'd make mistakes. Hurts just like doesn't blink. He makes the throws, he makes the plays, and other quarterbacks, they get worried and they make mistakes, and Hurts just stays poised, and he's that man in that moment, and that's what you need from your quarterback. And we've seen it happen multiple times this year. I mean, against the Cardinals, when we needed that game winning field goal, we got it. We've seen him multiple times this year, and he just rises to the occasion always.
And I think a lot of people, you only beat the Colts by 1 point, and they get into the look of your wins. This isn't college football. It doesn't matter.
No.
You're not trying to impress people for rankings and along the lines that a win in the NFL, you get that win, you get that column on the left-hand side, another tick. And if you look at the 2017 season, they beat the Giants with a last-second field goal.
Right.
And that Giants team finished the season 3-13.
Horrible.
So you won by 2 points there. It isn't about you look at, they played the Bears that year, who weren't very good. They played the 49ers, who were terrible that year.
Right.
And it's just, you didn't come away and blow them out of the water. Yeah, you had a couple games that you put it all together, but what it's about is you're getting the wins. The main goal is winning the division right now, getting home field, and then getting yourself into the playoffs, the playoff position.
Right.
And this is a game, and a lot of people clamored for the adversity effect. They want to see this team under adverse situations, how they handle it, how they come through things. And
the answer.
You're getting the answer, because Monday night they lose. They lose a game where they basically gave that game to Washington. So many chances that they had that was in their hands. You look at this game, they just offensively just sputtered, and it just wasn't looking good. And, I give all the credit to the Colts defense. The Colts defense are a very talented unit.
For sure.
But it's just the play calling was very stale. And I just think that they have to kind of come up with a little bit different things. I know Dallas Goedert's not in there. I don't know if that had what kind of effect that had. I know the one series, all those penalties.
I do think Goddard missing is a reason for the lack of creativity. I mean, you can't replace Goddard. He's great after the catch. He's great after contact. Like you can't replace him. So, I mean, if that's how it's going to be the next couple of weeks, I mean, there's some concern to that, because it's like, he's one of the guys that you can't afford to lose. And so if he goes down and you can't replace him, you can't figure out how to make this offense work, you gotta figure it out, because you don't have much leeway between the 1 seed and even the NFC East.
No, you don't with everything. Now, of course, the good thing here is the Cowboys and Giants both play. So one of those teams are going to come out with, hopefully one of those teams don't tie, and one of those teams comes out with 4 losses on Thursday. But looking at this game and seeing what they did defensively, I want to bring up Sue and Joseph, because they played very well. For coming off the street, I did not expect that.
No.
And, they combined for half a sack. I think they had 7 tackles combined with each other. Joseph was he had Ryan Kelly literally on his knees or on the ground multiple times during that game. And what I was like watching the game, and what I was thinking about was, man, when Jordan Davis comes back,
right?
Davis and Joseph, and being able to rotate. And I think being able to rotate these guys in, they're going to help Milton Williams. It's going to help Javon Hargrave. It's going to help Fletcher Cox.
Yep.
Being able to have these fresh bodies. Now, again, I don't know what's going on with Robert Quinn. I'd like to see him on the field a little more. I don't know if hopefully we start seeing a little bit more of that. I want to see some more in terms of him. But, looking at this defense and what they did on Sunday, I know the Colts offense isn't, it's not the Peyton Manning Colts offenses. It's not this high powered, but again, Jonathan Taylor was the best running back in football last year, and he's a talented player. Being able to hold him after he had 49 yards and that first drive, to hold him under 40 yards for the rest of the game is a big accomplishment. And
sure.
I love what I saw from those two guys, and especially with the teams that you have coming this Sunday night, a team that will run the ball, will want to try to run the ball with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. You're going to need some of these guys to step up again and be able to fill their roles. And, the defense itself is playing very well. I know there's a lot of Jonathan Gannon hate. I know I've been there. I've said it. I'm not going to say I haven't. I like a little bit more of an aggressive style of defense. That's just, that's what I grew up with, Jim Johnson, and being able to watch that and see that, I want to see a little bit more of that, but again, you got to give them credit because these guys are stepping up and they're playing great defense against the Colts. Who are coming off of a big victory, and with a new head coach, a new voice in there, they were coming off of a high, and you were able to, stop them. And again, this Eagles defense has not let up a touchdown in the last 4 games in the second half.
That's big.
So that is huge.
What's so good about this defense right now, and they have a big opportunity this weekend, is Gannon's defense is based off of like if the defensive line can create pressure and take the pressure off of secondary, like that's how they continue to make plays.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So if the defensive line can stop that run and force Aaron to throw, like Aaron could be in for a long day, especially if if Slade's up there making plays, Bradbury's doing his job and whatnot, and Chauncey's doing his job as well. Like Aaron could be in for a long day. So it's exciting to think about when we get Davis back, when we get Maddox back. Josiah Scott has played well last week and even a little bit on Sunday, but you also can see where he's struggling, and you can see where we're missing Devontae, and so it just excites you to think about when everyone's back healthy, how this defense has this potential that they can reach, and it's going to be big to stop the run on Sunday because if you watch Packers this year, it's run, throwing a pass, run, and like he was saying, they don't give Jones enough touches, and what worries me is that Jones is going to get those touches this weekend, and I do not want to see him run all over us, and going out and do a bubble and then catching and going out for 20 yards. I don't want to see that. So if they're going to give him the touches, limit the run, and force Aaron to beat you with who he has, because I'd rather trust Slay and Bradbury handle Watson and Lazard than have to have our front beat AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones.
Yeah, anytime you play Aaron Rodgers, I know he's not been playing that well this year. I know the offense has struggled, turnovers, everything along the lines of that. Their offensive line's been, hit or miss there. It's Aaron Rodgers. You can't discount Aaron Rodgers. That's the huge thing there. And Eagles they're going to have to come prepared. Now I know they're wearing their all black. Everyone wanted to see the all black, the black helmets, black jerseys, black pants, everything. I don't know if they're coming to the stadium a funeral for the Packers season.
Aaron Rodgers' career.
Yeah, I don't know, but just looking at this game and looking at I don't know. I just feel that Aaron Rodgers is a top, he's still a top player because of what he can do on the field. I still think his arm strength is there. I think everything is there. It's the playmakers. You're missing Devontae Adams, but looking at this game, what I want to do is go over the predictions and the locks. We'll get our predictions and our locks, and then we'll just wrap this up. But I want to go over last week's locks. Chip was wrong. He had Justin Jefferson, 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, 3 for 33.
Yeah, you got locked by Diggs.
You had Ryan under 225 yards and 0 touchdowns. So you were right there. He had 213 yards. I had a Henry touchdown and a Tennessee W by 2 scores. They won by 10. So what I'll do here is I'll let you manifest your prediction. I'm going to go off a little bit. We're going to stop I'm going to let you do your prediction.
All right. I think my lock of the week, we're going to go with AJ Brown and Smitty to both have 50 yards and both have a score. I feel good about the matchup with Jair and Russell. I think the Eagles will look to get the run game involved quickly and then force Green Bay to set the box. With last week, with the passing game not being there exactly, I think the offense looks to rebound. Yeah. I'm not too sure what Tony's doing right now. And then we'll go with in the division. I think Dallas takes down the Giants. I think Cowboys are just kind of getting hot at the right time. Thanksgiving at home, we know how that goes. I think Washington has the Falcons. Commanders are getting hot at the right time too. They've 3 in a row, going 4 in a row. They might get 5 in a row. The NFC East is looking a lot better than what we anticipated to be. With the Commanders beating the Eagles last week, it's clearly that it's any given Sunday. So.
Alrighty.
We're back.
I'm back. So what was your lock of the week?
Lock of the week, Smitty and AJ both to have 50 yards and both to score.
50 yards and a score?
Yep.
50 yards and a score. Now I will say Chip's lock of the week is Aaron Rodgers, 2 interceptions.
Okay.
So, hey, I'll take the turnovers. That's always it bodes well there. And then my lock of the week, I'm going to stick with this game. I'm going to go with the defensive side of the ball, and I will say Brandon Graham, he did mention, I was listening to him on the radio and stuff. They were talking about his sack, his big clutch sack at the end of the game, and they were talking about Aaron Rodgers. He's never sacked Aaron Rodgers before. BG will get his, yes, that is one player he has not sacked. BG will get his first sack on Aaron Rodgers.
I like that.
So throw that in there. But now we're going to go into our predictions. And I'll start off with Chip's prediction. He's got the Philadelphia Eagles winning 27-20. We'll keep it a little close, but he is giving the Eagles the win to move to 10-1. What is your prediction?
So, when I first saw this game in the schedule at the beginning of the year, I noticed that it was number 1 primetime, and number 1, obviously, in Philadelphia. And the last time the Eagles hosted the Packers on primetime, when we went all black, they got whooped. But I think it's going to be the other way around. I feel pretty good the Eagles handling business here. I do worry of Aaron Rodgers catching fire and getting that get right game, but we've also been saying it for the past how many weeks now. I'll go with 29-10 Birds.
29-10. Okay. I'm gonna go. I'm picking the Eagles as well. But looking at this game, I think the Eagles will be able to move the ball offensively. I think they're going to get themselves back into a rhythm against this Green Bay defense. And, I will say I do see the Packers possibly getting, a couple big plays here and there. Maybe not big touchdown plays, but I have the Eagles winning 30-20. I think the Packers will score late to make it 20 points, but I got 30-20. Philadelphia gets the win. I do want to bring up last week's predictions. I will give Chip a shout out because he picked the Eagles to win 17-14. A little bit off, but it was still really close. So I wanted to throw that in there as well. Always got to throw anytime there's close predictions, everything like that. But
if there's one thing I want to say about this game, and a point that Andy made, is if the Packers do get that run game going, what does worry me is the play action, because when Gannon gets aggressive, he's getting shredded by the run game. He's going to force his players in the box, and the next thing you know, he might have a little play action. Watson's going down the seam or whatnot. So if there's one way, if there's a plan for the Packers, it's develop the run game, get that going, and then, like Andy said, get some deep shots. And if that's what they can get going, they have a legit chance to win. But the Eagles should be prepared and they shouldn't handle business.
Yeah. I agree with you. If you can control that run game, I think basically the game is in your hands. How you want to decipher, how you want to dictate, basically. You can dictate the game that way if you're able to stop the run. But it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be enjoyable. I want to shout out a couple of sponsors that we have. There will be a commercial coming up with the sponsors. I'm working on that. But Doan Distillery in the Trolley Barn Public Market in Quakertown. Visit their website at doandistillery.com to see their list of delicious drinks and spirits. We will be doing a pregame show there again next month. So definitely keep an eye out. We'll be posting that and everything there. But definitely check them out in Quakertown. We have Vinny's Pizza Restaurant in Allentown at the Iroquois Trail. Again, game day specials, everything there. So definitely check them out. Vinny'sPizzaPA.com. Tell them we sent you. Same with Stuff to the Grills, also the Iroquois Trail in Allentown. Order them. StuffToGrills.com. Check them out. If you have catering, if you have an event you need catered, definitely check them out. Tell them that we sent you. And again, don't miss all the shows. We're here Wednesday nights. Don't forget across the pitch there are Union Soccer show. That's I know Union had a tough end of the year, but Mike and Dave are doing their thing there. Of course, Birds, Beers, and BS with Peanut and Jeff. So definitely check them out. They're doing a lot of great stuff, a lot of great content. So definitely check it all out. Follow us at AAT Birds. You can follow the network at AAT Sports _. So a lot of things happen. A lot of fun stuff. The season's in full swing into the second half of the season here, going towards December and towards playoff football. So this is fun. It's enjoyable, but we're going to end every show as we always do with a very happy and
Go
cheerful.
Birds.
Go Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.